The last place on our tour is Rockefeller's Restaurant in the Daniel Low Building. Now, the Daniel Low Building has two ghosts, Blue Lady and the Dark Gentleman. And the Dark Gentleman tends to look out for the Blue Lady. He's a little bit more shy, a little bit more cautious. And the Blue Lady is a far friendlier spirit. There's some connection there. There are competing theories as to who the Blue Lady is. Now, this building is another Federalist building designed by Samuel McIntyre in the 18 teens. It originally housed the first church in Salem. This footprint is where the church was in the 1690s. The first church in Salem moved a little bit down further, Essex Street, lovely stone building in 1852. And they sold this building to Daniel Low and Company. Daniel Low and Company was a jeweler. They made a load of money after the Civil War, pioneered a few things like mail order catalogs for jewelry. The business closed in 1995. The name's been reopened, but they're not in the same location anymore. Anyway, Rockefeller's opened in 2003. The Blue Lady is somewhat friendly, and there's even a picture of the Blue Lady behind the maitre d's desk at Rockefeller's. And she can be seen behind the alley right back here, sometimes at the front door, but she also enjoys the basement. Now, Rockefeller's still has the old Daniel Low safe. They have a table right in front of it. Kind of aesthetic, kind of stuff. And the Blue Lady loves there. And occasionally guests right there will be sitting there, and they'll feel like someone walked over the grave, or just like the temperature just fell, 10 or 15 degrees. You just met the Blue Lady. And this leads to the first theory about who the Blue Lady is. And it's like, there are a few competing theories. And the first one is that the Blue Lady used to work at Daniel Low and Company and had gotten trapped in the safe at night. He was doing something, and the door slams shut. She runs out of air and suffocates. That's why she likes being there. However, there is a problem with that story. The sightings of the Blue Lady long predate Daniel Low, so it's not there. Another popular theory about the Blue Lady is that she used to be a working girl. Yes, a prostitute plying her trade during the Depression, the early 19th century, and decided to get out of the world's oldest profession by falling in love with a ship's captain who unfortunately was married and solved the problem of having two families by some other means than getting a divorce and burying her in the sewers behind the building. But like I said, there seems to be some connection with the Dark Gentleman and the Blue Lady. And this has led to other speculations that the Dark Gentleman may have been a minister. Instead of the lady falling in love with a ship's captain, she'd fall in love with a minister at the church, and that the minister had hanged himself in remorse in the rafters. I've done my research, and no minister of the first church in Salem had committed suicide before 1852. There was a minister who committed suicide in the 1870s. He had been a chaplain in the Civil War and never quite got over it. And then when his family died in a train wreck, one thing led to another. And yes, he did cut his own throat in his office. Yes, the pastor's office was moved. But, like I said, different building. Now, there is even though no minister had committed suicide here, there is one man that's associated with the First Church in Salem who did commit suicide, and that was Nathaniel Batchelder in 1810. Now, Nathaniel Batchelder was a deacon. Now, I'm going to assume that none of my audience are 19th century Unitarians. You might not know what a 19th century Unitarian deacon did. Well, one of the things that a 19th century Unitarian was responsible for was just giving alms to the poor, and such was the responsibility of Nathaniel Batchelder. One of the people he took care of was a girl by the name of Sally Andrews. Now, Sally Andrews was not a working girl. Her story is a little bit more tragic. Her father had been a tanner, but he had died in the 1790s, leaving the family destitute. They had been well off and they had nothing. Well, Batchelder made sure that Sally and her mother and her sisters were taken care of, and did it as politely and as kindly as possible. He didn't really rub it in all that much. The family that had mostly been well-to-do, just couldn't feed or clothe themselves anymore. And anyway, in 1809, Sally is 18 years old, and like any good 18-year-old girl, she wants a beau. And she falls in love with a young man by the name of Crowninshield. It is not Roger. No, he's one of the good ones. But anyway, their budding love progresses, but before it goes too far, Sally comes down with typhus, and she dies in January of 1810. And like I said, it was moving in that direction, but it really hadn't progressed. Well, Crowninshield moves on, and by late February or early March, he's found another girl and he's gotten engaged. Well, the dead know all. And it was about the middle of March that Nathaniel Batchelder starts seeing an apparition of Sally Andrews. And she's sweetly drawing him to the other side. And it continues. He keeps seeing her. And by May, he's committed suicide. Anyway, guess who I think the blue lady and the dark gentleman are. Anyway, I hope you've had a lot of fun. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.